Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Bev. I'm Bev Curtis with Bev & Company at House of Brokers Realty, and I have the pleasure this morning to be downtown at the Boone Central Title location with three fabulous gals. So I want you to meet Jody, Mary Jo, and Carrie, and they're all three longtime closers here at Boone Central Title, and they are a wealth of knowledge, have great stories and things that's happened to them throughout the closing their career. Trust me, they've got some really good ones. And so this morning we're going to kind of capitalize on their interest in what they do for Boone Central Title, the services that they offer. I know back in February we had the pleasure with talking to Bert Hughes, who kind of gave us an overview of what title insurance is, but there's a whole nother aspect, a whole nother side that people don't see that involves a title company. So this morning we're just kind of going to visit with you guys. Do you mind just kind of sharing how long you've been with Boone Central Title and kind of what you do here?
So I'm Jody. I've been with Boone Central, oh gosh, maybe 8 years now, but I've been doing this job for close to 15.
And I'm Mary Jo. I am Executive Vice President here, and I have been here, I
Don't
hate
tell your
to
age.
say, working on 31 years.
Woo!
I started when I was
Way
very
to
young.
go.
So.
Yeah.
I'm Carrie Nichols. I'm a closer here at Boone Central and have been for 3 or 4 years. Prior to that, I was a lender for 12 years, so I've been in the business for quite some time.
Okay. Well, and I think kind of what the big question is for a lot of people is like, I know as a realtor, as we're going through and kind of explaining closing costs and that, you get to the topic of title insurance and whose responsibility is it to pay and how the fees are all broken out. And so we explain it from that aspect, but a lot of people are kind of puzzled at me like, what does that really mean? What do they really do? Why do we go to a title company? How does the lender get involved? So do one of you kind of want to start to say, hey, what does your day look like as far as processing contracts and going through that everyday process with getting deals closed?
Well, I'll start with just kind of explaining what we do here, and then maybe Jody can take it from the closing. So what Boone Central Title is, we're a title insurance company, so we issue title insurance. We have several underwriters that we're agents for. Title insurance is, like Bert explained, it's providing clear ownership in the property that you're purchasing. We also have escrow services, so we act sort of as a impartial third party in the transaction. So we're the party that collects all the funds, disperses. We get information from the seller, the buyer. We work with the lender. We get everything ready and prepared for the closing statements. We report 1099s. We make sure all the liens are paid off. But besides closings, we also do a lot of other things here, like tax lien searches or just property information. Maybe someone's listing some property and they want to know what the covenants and restrictions are. We have all of that here. We do a lot of other things besides just closings. And then maybe Jody will tell us about what a closing looks like.
So as a closer, or what we kind of do as we facilitate the transaction is a contract comes into us, and I'm just gonna go with like a purchase transaction. A contract would come to us. We would get it either from the lender or a real estate agent. Sometimes maybe a seller or a buyer if it would be like a for sale by owner transaction. It would come to us. We then would start the title search. The order would be entered. From that, we would go through, search, prior liens, current ownership, and we would prepare a title commitment. Well, then as a closer, we get that title commitment as soon as it's produced, and we basically dissect this title commitment in order to get the end result of the actual closing and the deed transfer. So from that, we look at anything that is required to pass on that clear title. It may be ordering the payoffs, it may be collecting delinquent real estate taxes, maybe paying off any state tax liens. There's numerous things that could be on there. But we, however, are the liaison between the lenders, the realtors, the buyers, and the sellers of the transaction. And we compile all this information in order, like Mary Jo said, to prepare those statements We get the numbers out to the clients prior to the actual closing for review. From that, we sign with the sellers. We then get loan documents from the lender or the loan figures in order to get the bottom line for the borrower. And then we disperse the checks. We're the ones that pay off your loan, your mortgage, any of those other judgments or liens that may be against the property. But basically, we just are the liaison between everybody involved in the transaction to get the final result of your home closing, or whether it's you're buying or you're selling. So.
Well, and Carrie, would you mind kind of sharing with us, because I know Boone Central Title has been in our community for a long time now, has a fabulous reputation. You guys are so catering, to everyone's needs. Would you mind kind of sharing with us the customer service side? Because I know you guys go to all different places to meet people and try to accommodate their situations, because let's face it, when you're in the heat of moving, it's not the most prideful time in your life, as far as, you're strung out and stressed out and got lots of irons in the fire. So would you mind kind of sharing that piece of it here?
Sure. So Boone County is kind of the odd duck when it comes to the closing. A lot of times the buyer and seller do sit down at the same table and consummate that closing in that way. And I'm always impressed basically by so many things go into a closing, with deadlines, inspections, possible price renegotiations, all of these things. It's a stressful time, like you said, for everybody, but most of the time people all come down and sit at the same table with one another, and it is a very happy and smooth process.
That's our goal anyway.
That's the goal. That's what you expect. That's the ideal BCT closing. But things are not always ideal, and situations are not ideal. Not all the time is a situation a happy one. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes our responsibility to make it as smooth as possible, professional as possible, compassionate as possible. So yeah, we find ourselves in all different kinds of places: nursing homes, hospitals. Really, you name
Saturdays
it.
or Sundays or
Right.
somebody's house, or
And I said that I've been to out on Broadway Street signing documents with a woman that's she's in labor on the way to the hospital. They'll call and say, can anybody sign? I've been to the hospital
Yeah, sometimes
during
some
labor.
yes.
We try to understand that we can't always do everything, but we try to understand that, like Bev said, it can be a stressful situation. Things come up, unforeseen things come up, and we try to do whatever we can to get that deadline and meet that closing and let the people move in.
I've always kind of gone with the rule of thumb as far as things that I've done above and beyond is just, what if it were me? What if I couldn't be here until 5:30 because I just moved to Columbia and started a new job and I don't have any vacation, or I'm in training until such and such time.
Mm-hmm.
I just always kind of think, like, if it were me, or if it were my mother that was selling her house, or whoever, like, wouldn't I appreciate if somebody could do that for me? And there's so many of us that work here, even if I can't do it on that day, by golly, there's somebody that can.
And there's almost always a way to make it work.
There really
We
is.
just need to talk to them and find out what works best. So.
And we've
It's
seen it
life.
all.
Yeah.
We've seen it all.
Yeah.
We've been through it all. So if you think that, I don't even know how this is going to work, run it by us. 'Cause
Yes, run it by us.
we've got a solution, I'm sure, because we've been there, done that. I promise.
Yeah, it's life, and it's a big thing. And even though we do it every day, all day, I don't think we underestimate how important it is to everybody.
Right.
I would totally agree with that, and I think even as a realtor, I've always said a realtor needs to move every couple years to put yourself in your client's shoes.
Right.
Because what we just go about is everyday work life. We don't really think about what all's going on in their world, and you're trying to take care of a number of clients all at the same time, and something that we take for granted could be a crucial little detail for the client that they just don't know what they don't know because they don't do this every day. And so I think that's where working with experienced people an experienced lender, an experienced title company, an experienced realtor. You need the combination. It's a team effort. Would you guys not agree?
Oh, it's definitely a team
Because
effort.
I'm sure that there's probably a difference for you guys if there's an out-of-state lender versus a local lender.
For sure.
It
Definitely.
probably makes your job a little easier if it's local, a little tougher if it's harder. I mean,
Yeah, we have developed relationships with anyone that is local. I mean, like we said, we've been doing this for a long time, not only Boone Central itself, but everyone here in our office. And if it's local, we know who to call, who to,
That's
you know.
the big thing. We know who to call. But, we work with a lot of out-of-town lenders also. And, for the most part, they have a seamless process. It's just, like you said, it's just nice to know who to call. Just if you have,
Exactly.
And
question.
Columbia has so many wonderful lenders,
Right.
agents.
We do. We're
you
very
know,
blessed.
We are,
very much.
we are. And we
Yes.
all have a pretty good relationship, and it's a team effort, just
Yeah.
like what you said. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into the closing of a home.
yeah. And wouldn't you say too, now with technology and everything, a lot of people close remotely now? I mean, not as many people, lots of pre-signings it seems like.
For sure.
Where both
Sellers,
sides don't
for
come.
sure, especially sellers.
Especially sellers. There are a lot of pre-signed. There are a lot of documents that go out Federal Express. We have a lot of Federal Express.
We should have
Yeah.
stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing too I found from people coming in from outside of our area, they are shocked that a buyer and a seller sit down across the table from one another.
Yes.
For sure.
So it is, it's even, local counties do things different. Every kind of county has their own little process or
Sure.
their, what's normal here. And yeah, a lot of people are surprised, especially when they come from another state. Like, everybody is here? Yeah. So buyer, seller, maybe 2 realtors, maybe 2 brokers. Yeah, we'll be all rooms.
Yeah.
But the most part, we're all in there
Sometimes
together.
Sometimes that's necessary, and we get that too.
Yeah. But I think it kind of goes to show that we're still kind of a hometown effect, that everybody
Absolutely.
is, helping everybody, and everybody's very welcoming, and, it's just, for the most part, like you said, not always, but for the most part, Boone Central Title is a very happy place to come because somebody's either selling a home that they really need to sell, or somebody's buying a property that they really want to buy, and, for the most part, but life does happen in between, so.
And don't forget Cookie Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
They do have delicious cookies, I have to say. And they always have cold beverages, and they always have the good stuff, so I have to say, so they're very customer service oriented in that fashion. Let me ask you a question on this. As far as turnaround time, because I know that you guys kind of evolve with the peak seasons like we do. Spring is kind of your heaviest, and, I see your cars out here late at night too. It's like when it's, when the show has to happen, you guys have to be behind the scenes and really crank it in all out to meet those deadlines. What is a normal turnaround time that you feel comfortable with, that when you get a contract in hand, what does that process look like as far as how soon could I close?
Well, I would just like to say one thing, we're from the closing aspect here, but I will say closings would not go as smooth if we did not have our research department. They're the behind the scenes people that get everything out as quick as possible. And without them,
Oh, yeah.
we
How
could,
many
we
is
couldn't.
them? How many
So
researchers
we
do you
have 22 employees total.
Oh, wow.
Right now we have 3 researchers, and then we have 2 examiners, and then we have Karen also does.
Right.
She steps in, and then we have another part-time person that comes in and helps.
Wow.
On occasion. And then we have someone that just enters our orders. We have one person that does that, and then we have another person that manages takes care of our title plant, and person that sends out all the final policies. So it's a
well-oiled
team.
machine here,
And
for
it's
sure.
I will say it's a well-oiled machine.
That's impressive.
So when we get a contract, we know that there's a deadline there, and sometimes we don't get the contract until 2 or 3 days after it's signed.
Sure.
So we try to have that turnaround at least 5 days, and I know they're getting a lot of those out even quicker than that. If we have done some prior work on it, we can get it out a little bit quicker. But we try to get it out in the 5 days. So I would say, on average, a normal closing, if you didn't have unforeseen liens or unforeseen title problems or things like that, if we get a contract we could probably close in, we'll say 10 days.
Oh, wow.
But,
That's pretty quickly.
you know, if there were no, like I said, tax liens that, you know,
Sure.
took, some lenders take 2 weeks to get a payoff. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true.
you know, so it just depends.
So any purchase where the buyer is getting a loan, most of the time, you know, it's our job to get that commitment out. Typically, that deadline is 10 days on the contract.
Mhm.
So we get that done, and then we're most of the time at the mercy of the lender and their timeline. They have guidelines too and deadlines,
Right.
and so we're kind of that first point of contact where we establish that commitment, and then we work with everybody else to try to get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we've gotten a contract that's a cash deal on I have one I got on Monday
Mhm.
and I'm closing it Friday.
Wow.
Right.
And that was just and it's even a condo, like we have to get the condo dues, we have to get the
Go
resale
through the whole
certificate.
association.
There was a payoff from the seller, and I mean, I'll be honest, the agents were the ones that facilitated it. You know, they knew what we were gonna need in order to make that fast timeline, and
Mhm.
we're ready to go. And that was just Monday, and today's Wednesday.
Well, it's all the team effort if everybody's doing their thing, and we're
Sure.
blessed with a great real estate community, so that's
It's
awesome.
communication. Communication is
Yeah.
key in our business, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I have to ask.
Oh boy.
No, look. I have to ask because I know I've experienced a lot of quirky things during my career too, but you guys have had to see some interesting situations come about. I'm sure if these
Yes.
walls could talk,
Yes.
I'm
So-
sure there would be some very creative stories out there.
So a couple of years ago, we were actually, you know, talking about stories that have happened and things, and so we've actually set up a little. Well, you know, I'm still into Word Perfect, so I have a little Word Perfect file. And so when we have those little funny stories, I jot them down because we like to get them out every once in a while. It's just, you know, kind of
We've got our
kind of lighten things up a little bit. But I think in my, I mean, I've seen a lot of funny things. This just always sticks out to me, and this has been 100 years ago when I was at a closing, and the loan officer was going over the loan documents with the buyer, and he was saying, you know, this is your loan amount, and this is the maturity date, so the loan will be paid in 30 years. And one spouse looked at the other and said, there is no way I can live with you for 30 years. And out the door they went.
And never came back, right?
Never came back. And the rest of us are sitting there like,
And I take it you have a seller
What do you-
sitting there too?
oh yes, yeah.
Okay, and so the look on their face had to be
I
just
mean,
priceless.
we're all frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that has happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was not one of the happier days.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't a happy
Wow.
But
Yeah.
memorable.
day. It was memorable.
Hey, made it to the book. Made it to the book.
Yeah, it made it to the Word file.
Is there any others that you guys want to share that you can think of?
I will just say
this.
this is just a very common thing, and it's just a good point to kind of bring forward through this little deal we're doing this morning. But marital status is very important in our business. If you've been married before, if you're currently married, if you're not, if there's been a divorce since you've owned the property, you know, I mean, it's just a very vital piece of the puzzle to what we do.
Yes.
And we run into hiccups all the time, but I do say, I mean, whenever you are a seller and you are asked a series of questions on the affidavit just to affirm the work that we've done on the title search, you know, how long have you owned it? Has there been a divorce? Is there any other payout? You know, all these series of questions. I just really remember this young guy once, and I said, you know, have you been divorced since you owned this property? And I mean, just dead blank looks at me and says, no. There was a lot of breakups. I still tell that story almost every time, because when you ask on that affidavit, people will be like, the husband and wife, because it is a very trying time. They'll look at each other and be like, not yet. Gotta get through this move. But that guy was serious as a heart attack. No, but a lot of breakups.
So one thing then that does come up, because a lot of people don't realize that Missouri is a marital interest state. Some people think that when you buy a property and you're single and you go to sell it, you're still the only one on title.
Oh, yeah.
But if you are married and that spouse does have to sign the deed and sign his or her interest away, and so we do find ourselves sometimes like chasing down spouses wherever they may be.
Wherever they
Wherever
may be,
they
correct.
may
Well, and we've had some circumstances ourselves where there was like, and I think you guys were helping us through it, had a for sale by owner situation, and unfortunately the seller had been deceased, but then there was some owner financing involved, and a quitclaim deed wasn't signed, and I mean, we were going back trying to track on Facebook. I mean,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
trying to go
Oh, yeah.
back.
Oh yeah, I don't know what we did before
Different
Facebook trying to track somebody down.
resources to try to track these folks down, and then you find out that they're deceased, and then you're looking for heirs, and I mean, it's almost like this little detective
Yes,
game.
it is.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing a lot of detective work, which I mean, personally, I find very fascinating. But I mean, when you're,
Yeah.
you know, when you're trying to get a transaction done, it can also be very stressful too on everybody
Absolutely.
because you know,
Yeah,
it just takes
there are
such a time.
roadblocks for sure.
There are
sometimes.
definitely roadblocks. I know, like tax liens that come up, and just you know, there's just all sorts of things that come.
So I think our biggest advice would be to disclose
anything and everything.
anything and everything. If you're in pending bankruptcy, just disclose that. It may not affect the title, but it may.
Mhm.
And if we don't find out about it until 3 days before the closing, then it's going to be a problem. Something we could have solved when we got the contract 10 days ago,
Mhm.
but 3 days before closing may not be able to work.
Mhm.
And like Carrie was saying, the marital interest, I mean, that's huge. I will say that I have a lot of people asking us advice on, they want like a transfer on death on the deed. And there's a lot of things that we cannot do or we cannot give advice on that would be considered legal advice. Like,
Mhm.
I can't advise someone about a beneficiary deed. I can't order a beneficiary deed necessarily. But if they're interested, call me and I can tell them kind of what it means, what they have to do. They can contact their attorney. Just things that come up, like two single people taking title. Sometimes they think that because they're both on title, they hold it jointly, and that doesn't necessarily come true. So we try to bring that up at closing, but there's just a lot of things. People want to put their kids on title. Well, do you understand what that really means?
Yeah.
How old are your kids? Do you understand if they get married, their spouses may obtain an interest? What if
Right.
they have a tax lien against them? There's just a lot of things. So just ask the questions, and we'll try to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, the marital interest thing definitely trips people up because
Definitely.
they think if they purchased it in their name, it's
Mhm.
theirs, it's
Mhm.
mine, and that's not the way.
Or if they've inherited it,
Yeah.
then their spouse has to sign. I mean, there's just
They may
Lot-
not identify as a married person, but if the great
Right.
state of Missouri says they are, then
Yeah.
it's a deal breaker.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's a lot of questions about power of attorneys. Can they use a power of attorney as a buyer, a seller, as a trust,
Mhm.
situation? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I know at a power of attorney, if somebody wants to use a power of attorney because they're at work, okay, well, let's find a way to make that where we can actually get your signature,
Right.
Let's
Right.
don't use a power of attorney for that. Let's get a signature. But sometimes you have to use a power of attorney.
Mhm.
Gosh,
So
yeah.
anyway, there's just so many situations. Like everybody said, there's hardly any two closings that are the same. So
All the more reason to call Boone Central Title
Thank
for
you.
all
Or
your
Beth,
title insurance
right?
needs.
And
That's
Beth will
right.
be happy to assist
We
you
make
too.
a great little team together, I tell you. We girls can get it done, let me
Oh,
tell
yeah.
you.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
But I do want to thank all three of you, Jody, Mary Jo, Carrie. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. This is just to kind of give you a little inside snapshot of what all goes on here. So as you can tell, there's lots of moving parts and pieces, and it's something that you definitely need someone that's got great experience. Boone Central Title has got an impeccable reputation, very long-standing here in our community, and is certainly the title company of choice. So when you think of your title insurance needs, definitely consider Boone Central Title. And thanks again for all your time.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
for all the wonderful many closings. I know I've been in business for 25 years, and I've seen you guys for many, many times. And I have to say, it's one of my favorite places to come to.
thank
So it's a
you.
very happy place,
Thank
and
you.
it's right across the street from Trop. So it's
Yeah.
like, how does it get better, you know?
And if it's a Friday, there are cookies.
Just Jeff's always sits on the corner every couple of months. You guys got great cookies. It's like walking distance to all the
Yeah.
restaurants. It's like, how could it not get happier
There you go.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
We try to operate like one big family, and we have
You do a
very,
very
good group here,
outstanding job, I
Oh,
have
thank
to
you.
say. So thank you guys for joining in this morning with Breakfast with Bev. Hope you found the information to be very informational. If you have situations or questions in regard to your own personal situation with real estate, don't hesitate to reach out to Boone Central. I actually know their number by heart. 573-442-0139. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week.